Bonjour à tous, bienvenue pour ce premier OpenStack Day. Hello everyone and welcome to the first OpenStack Day in France. It's really awesome for me to be here for this inaugural event in France. Our community is organizing those OpenStack Days everywhere around the world, and it's always a great opportunity to learn about OpenStack, to meet with the local actors, the local community, and also discover new use cases and users of OpenStack. I want to use my very short keynote time today to give you a quick overview of the various facets of what is OpenStack, because there are lots of different ways to consider it depending on the angle you take. At the base, I mean, excuse me, I haven't presented myself. My name is Thierry Carrez. I work for the OpenStack Foundation as a director of engineering, and like I said, I want to introduce what is OpenStack, the various facets of OpenStack. At the base, OpenStack is a common goal. It's this idea that we need an open source software stack to build interoperable cloud infrastructure software. And that is embodied in the OpenStack mission, and a number of organizations rallied behind that goal. If you want to build a public cloud or a decently sized private cloud and you're not Amazon, Google, or Microsoft, you don't really want to start from scratch. And so you have a number of companies that have joined on this mission. So OpenStack is also a coalition of organizations. Those companies that directly use OpenStack, but also those organizations that want to help you do that. Now, it's not necessarily easy or natural for those competing organizations to collaborate and work together on something. And that's where the OpenStack Foundation plays in, to help structure and organize that open collaboration. Open source foundations help in three different areas. You have, they provide an asset lock, they help sharing downstream, and they help enabling upstream. And I will get back to all those things. On the asset lock side, the idea is that an open source foundation can provide a neutral place where you can hold the assets without one specific organizations in that collaboration holding the keys to the kingdom. It's really difficult for an organization to fully involve itself into a project if one of the organizations can pull the rug below their feet at any moment. The OpenStack Foundation main asset is the OpenStack trademark, which basically decides what you're allowed to call OpenStack or not call OpenStack. And it's being used essentially for enforcing interoperability. So things that are called OpenStack should have a basic level of interoperability between them, otherwise they shouldn't be able to call themselves OpenStack. And that's the work of the interoperability work group at the foundation, working to ensure that we have this base set of services that all things that are called OpenStack should share. On the sharing downstream side, it's the idea that you should enable all the users of the software and share as much as you can between them. The most obvious part of this effort is the events we are running. We run the OpenStack Summits every 6 months. We just had one in Barcelona. The next one is in May in Boston. Those are really big events. We have a conference running. We have a marketplace, which this is the one in Vancouver we had. You have an academy where you can learn and teach new skills around OpenStack. And we also have a forum where you can share the direction, discuss within the community the direction of OpenStack for the next 6 months or the next year. We also run those OpenStack days everywhere around the world. There's our community organized. Every local community comes up with their own OpenStack day, and the foundation tries to support them in every way we can. The other co-marketing resources that are produced by the foundation include a user survey. We run a user survey every 6 months, which gives a pretty accurate picture of the state of the OpenStack market, like the various components being used, the various drivers being used, how many people are in production, the size of their deployments. And this user survey, you can access it through the OpenStack Foundation website. We also do a certified OpenStack administrator exam. We have a marketplace website where all the vendors can list their products working on OpenStack, etc., etc. Last but not least, open source foundations work on enabling upstream. By enabling upstream, we mean they should provide a healthy environment for the open source upstream project to strive. In OpenStack, we do that by enabling an independent upstream. And by independent upstream, we mean that the leadership of the project is representative of the contributors to the project. And it's a pretty important thing. Whenever you have an open source project where the contributors are disconnected from their leadership, where the leadership is not necessarily aligned with the contributors, you face the risk of a fork where the contributors will take the code somewhere else under a different governance. So from day zero in OpenStack, we really wanted to avoid that situation by enforcing an extreme tight bound between the contributors to the project and the leaders of the project. So we do that using a unique governance model where all the project contributors elect their project technical leads, and all the contributors to all the projects in OpenStack elect the technical committee which oversees the whole development of all of OpenStack. It's not the only project that works like this, but usually open source projects go to that point after having made a few mistakes along the way. So you have a fork and they switch to a model that is more open. And from the beginning in OpenStack, we worked on this model to really prevent the future potential disconnect between contributors and the leadership. OpenStack, it's a set of projects. We have 31 service projects in OpenStack Newton, the recent release. Those are all components you can compose to build a software infrastructure solution. There are lots of different projects. Some of them are pretty central, like Keystone on handling authentication, Nova handling the production of VMs. You have more exotic projects like Vitrage for root cause analysis. Some of them are pretty central. You will deploy them in almost all of OpenStack deployments. Some of them are pretty rare and cover a very specific use case. At the same time, it's important to remember that OpenStack is also a single project. It's a single project under a single governance. And the reason for that is, if you have a collection of purely independent projects, you would probably have some of them very successful, but the user experience of operating them together would be pretty poor. If every component in OpenStack used a different logging system, used a different configuration, file format, used different base services, operating them together would be pretty miserable experience. And that's why the technical committee strives to enforce as much commonality between those various components so that operating them together feels like you're operating a single platform and not a loose collection of unrelated projects. The technical committee does that by enforcing a number of principles, which can be mostly summarized as the 4 opens: open source, open development, open design, and open community. Open source, pretty simple, like everyone does open source those days, so you probably know about it. Open development is slightly more rare. It's the idea that everything that happens inside OpenStack development is public. Every single line of code proposed goes through public code reviews. Every meeting is logged and happens on IRC. You can join them. Every spec is also discussed on the same code review system. Everything within OpenStack development is visible. You won't have like a surprise feature landing in the middle of the keynote. We also push that one step further by doing open design. It's not a closed group of developers coming up with the design for the next 6 months and everyone else just writing bug fixes. The design also is discussed in public and openly and sets the direction for the next release of OpenStack. And finally, open community. It's you can access leadership positions within OpenStack without having to be appointed by a corporate sponsor or whatever. It's anyone in OpenStack can become a project leader by participating, getting respect from their fellow contributors by their contributions, and get elected to leadership positions. They are not limited to like sponsors of the foundation or whatever, anyone community as well. And that makes OpenStack a development community. It's a set of people that are aligned on the same mission and follow the same set of principles. And if you take the angle of that community, well, if what you're working on is helping with the OpenStack mission and you are following the OpenStack community principles, then you're part of the OpenStack community. And what you work on is probably part of OpenStack. And that's what triggered the project structure reform called the Big Tent. It's this idea that if what you're working on is helping with the OpenStack mission, and you're following the OpenStack set of principles, then your project is an OpenStack project, and you should be part of our community rather than kept outside of the community. That said, for some of us, it's none of those things. It's not, OpenStack is not any of those things. It's a way to produce software. It's a project infrastructure. It's a continuous integration system. It's the fact that we rely heavily on code reviews, automated tests, Git commits, a cloud-based testing infrastructure to ensure high quality and less regressions entering the software. It's a very complex set of projects. There are lots of complex interactions, so ensuring that all those pieces work together is pretty critical. And we set up a pretty impressive system to enable OpenStack development. To give you an idea of the scale of the system, we run 23,000 tests every day in OpenStack. Most of those tests take about 40 minutes to run, deploy a lot of different OpenStack components. We run them on 1,000 VMs in parallel, or donated by 5 different OpenStack public clouds around the globe. And that's every single day of OpenStack development. And that points to the fact that OpenStack is a very active open source project. So it's sometimes easy to understand now that we are past the top of the hype curve and it's moved to other projects. Some people think that OpenStack is smaller than it was, or it's smaller than some other well-known container projects. It's actually one of the biggest open source projects out there. It's actually the largest open source, the most active open source project under a single governance model. And that points to the fact that OpenStack in the end is a success story, because it's always easy for me to lose sight of this because I'm deep into day-to-day problems and all the various issues we might encounter during development. But in retrospect, if you told me 6 years ago that OpenStack would be run at the largest utility company in the world, at the largest retailer in the world, at the largest automaker in the world, at the largest telco in the world, at the largest science organizations in the world, in half of the Fortune 100, I would say, well, you're crazy. There is no way we can do that in 6 years. And so sometimes taking a step back, realizing how much we've done, how many users we have, how many people are indirectly served by software powered by OpenStack infrastructure is a good step. So as a conclusion, what is OpenStack? Well, it's all those things together, right? It's a set of principles, it's a common goal, it's a coalition of organizations, it's a foundation, it's a set of projects, it's also a single project, it's a continuous integration system, it's a development community, it's all those things together. It's a well-oiled machine to produce infrastructure software. We integrated VMs in the past, we are integrating container technology now. OpenStack is an integration engine. It will provide software for you to run your infrastructure. And whatever this infrastructure needs to provide to your users, be it VMs, containers, unikernels tomorrow, whatever, OpenStack will be there to integrate it. It's a well-oiled machine to produce software. It's a group of people that are aligned with this idea that we need infrastructure software. And so whatever comes next will be there to integrate it. Thank you.